Hey there, Blip here, and today for you guys I have a video on Stygia and how you can use it to gain a fair amount of DPS depending on your situation. Now the two ways you can actually spend your Stygia right now is first on the sockets. It's 7,200 Stygia for a socket, which you can have up to 6 of on your gear, and then you also can get Conduit Upgrades, random Conduit Upgrades, and it costs 1,900 Stygia per Conduit Upgrade. Before we get into the video, I just want to say that guys, we've grown so much over the last couple of weeks. It's actually been insane and I've received so much support. I can't thank you guys enough. If you want to further help support the channel, I recently set up a membership type thing that YouTube does, where if you look below the video you can press the join button and you can see the sort of things I'm going to offer you. Like a quick brief rundown is I'm going to be offering you these awesome handcrafted badges that I put together that will appear next to your name whenever I stream on YouTube or whenever you comment on my videos. I'll also be doing a special members only weekly live stream at the end of the week on a Friday, where I'll be talking to you guys and showing you anything you want to know about Mage. I'll be obviously just completely dedicated on answering questions and showing you guys how to do stuff, because obviously I'll be right there in the game and I can help you guys out. Either way, that's like the best way to help support me right now. I really want to turn this into my full-time job as soon as I can because I love doing this. And as soon as I can put that money back into my videos, I will 100% do that. Like, I don't need much money to live, honestly, so I'll be investing in new logos and stuff like that. Okay, now back into the video. So, there are two things to take away here, right? We need to find out, is it worth gambling on conduits or not? Or is it better to spend your Stygia on sockets? Well, this is going to change depending on your class, first of all, because some classes have better conduits than other classes. Fire Mage, for example, is a very good class for conduit gambling because we have Infernal Cascade, which is probably one of the strongest conduits in the game. You also have to factor in that with your Stygia, you can only put it on 6 pieces of gear, which is your head, neck, waist, wrists, and 2 rings. So whenever you're considering, and also you might want to save your Stygia so you can upgrade your BIS gear, and so when you get your 226s or your max upgraded legendaries, those may be the only times you want to spend your Stygia on sockets, so you might have the opportunity to spend it on other things as well. We have surplus, or you just don't have the gear you need yet. Now, about the conduit upgrading, before we get into the main brunt of this discussion, you have to understand how it works. So how it works is that it will pick a random conduit that you don't own already. So, for example, for Mage, there are 3 Endurance conduits, there are 4 Finesse conduits, and there are 13 Potency conduits. You can get all of the Endurance and Finesse conduits from the raid, you can get all of the Potency conduits from Mythic Plus apart from 1, and you can get 3 of them from PvP, but since you can get them from Mythic Plus anyway, it doesn't matter. I'll talk about that more later. But the only one that you really have to worry about getting is this, the Discipline of the Grove one, or your Conduit specific one, or your Covenant specific one, because you can only get that from the World Boss, so obviously that's a weekly chance. And this is very important when it comes to conduit upgrading. This is simply because, as I was going to say, if you don't have a conduit when you buy the conduit upgrading item, it's going to give you that conduit first. It doesn't care about your spec and what you're spec'd into. So if I'm spec'd into fire and I don't have all the arcane ones, it will give me a random arcane one. And then how it works from that point onwards is it will always upgrade your lowest item level conduit. Again, it doesn't care about your spec. So if I had a 200 item level Ice Bite and everything else was 213 item level, it would upgrade the Ice Bite by 13 item levels so it goes up a rank and is equivalent with everything else. And then when I buy the item after that, it would then randomly pick one of the 213s I own because I have them all on 213. Now the reason it's so important to understand that is because this is going to determine whether gambling on conduits is going to be more risky for you or more beneficial for you. So now, the type of player you are is going to really impact this decision. If you're a PvP only player, this is most likely not going to be the right choice for you because you're not going to have a lot of these conduits at the minimum rank you want before you start gambling. I would say the 2 requirements that you must have is first, you must be a heroic raider at the minimum, simply because that gives you the ability to get 213 item level conduits in your endurance and your finesse tree, which means that's 7 less possibilities that your conduit can upgrade on when you're trying to upgrade your Infernal Cascade or your other BIS conduit to your, the highest rank you can get it right now. So that's very important. The other really important thing that you must be able to do is complete Mythic Plus keys on +8 difficulty. +8 difficulty, I believe, is the break-off for normal item level, which is why you can get the conduits up to 200 item level. So by doing all the different dungeons on Mythic Plus difficulty, you can get all of the conduits, as you can see, I'll show you now. You can get all of the conduits just from Mythic Plus, and as I said, +8 is the cutoff for the 200 item level stuff, so you want to ideally get all the conduits on 200 item level before you go into this step of conduit gambling that I'm going to tell you more about in a second. So again, just to recap, Heroic rating is going to give you all your endurance and finesse. Mythic plus a difficulty or higher is going to give you all your 200 item level conduits and your potency. And then Discipline of the Grove, or your Covenant specific one, you need to get from a world boss. Now once you've laid the ground and you have all of the endurance and finesse on heroic and all of the potencies on Mythic plus 8 difficulty at the least at all 200 item level, that's when you can start consider gambling. Now the thing we have to find out here is how much DPS is our Stygia worth. We can get a value from our Stygia. So make sure you have all your best gear on here, because this is for the next part of the video now. We're going to have to sim our character and find out how much DPS this socket is worth. That way we can kind of get an idea on how much it's going to be worth spending on the Conduit upgrades. So as I said, equip all your best gear, make sure you have no like contradictions on or missing pieces or enchants, because if you do, you're going to have an inaccurate sim and that can really mess things up. So now I'm going to go to raid bots here, and as you can see I have two separate sims. Now I'm going to show you how to do these sims because I think it's very important that you understand this, so you can do it yourself and find out if this is worth doing for you. So you're going to type /mc in your chat box, you're going to get your simulation thing up, maybe you have to have the add-on for this to work, and you're going to copy and paste that information. Put that into raid bots, then I'm going to go to stat weights, I'm going to sim it, and I want to sim for patchwork. Now again, this might change up how you value your stuff, right? If you're a Mythic Plus only player, for example, then you'll want to sim like 3 or 4 targets maybe, so you can get a more kind of accurate value of how much DPS is going to be worth for you. But since I'm a raider and that's my main focus, I'm going to be simming on patchwork, 1 boss, 5 minutes for the most accurate information I can get. Now we also need to do a sim to find out how much your Conduit upgrade is worth. So this time, I want to only find out how much 1 conduit slot is going to be worth for me. So I have Dreamweaver selected right now. I'm going to select the right path here to make sure a second potency isn't selected. Because trust me, if you have 2 potencies selected, it's going to mess up the sim, and you don't want that. So I have Infernal Cascade selected. Now I already have a 213 one because I've already done the conduit gambling. You'll probably have a 200 item level, so you might need to do this a bit differently. Either way, as you can see, I have my Infernal Cascade socketed in here, and it's the only conduit I have selected. And now I can take that information, I can sim it, and I can go to top gear here. I can put a sim in like this. But now I need to make sure that my top gear sim is set up correctly. I don't want to have any duplicates or any possible alterations that could mess up the sim. Make sure you don't have replacing existing gems or enchants or adding sockets onto your gear. So then we come down to here, right? So by default you have your conduits selected here. Obviously I only have 1 selected right now. I don't know where this is selected, I can unselect that. Now the way you're going to test this, right, is you'll have your Infernal Cascade 200 item level socketed in, then you'll go to unlock all conduits, and then most likely if you haven't done conduit gambling yet, you're going to see that the 213 one is the one you're going to want to check, because that's the one you're going to be able to gamble for first. So you'll do that. For me, I'm going to do the rank 7 because obviously I have a 213 one already, so I need to show you just how I would go about simming how much the upgrade is worth for me. So obviously I have all my talents selected, nothing is out of place here, same as my stat weight sim, and now we can find out how much this conduit is going to be worth for us. So now we can go into our stat weights here while this is doing its sim. So now I can see my mastery is my most valued secondary stat, which is 1.4, and then we can do the sims, right? So I'm going to get calculator up here. And now we can find out how much DPS a socket is worth. So a socket has 16 stats on it, then we can times that by my stat value multiplier, and a socket is worth 22.4 DPS. Now we need to find out how much this is worth, this Infernal Cascade conduit. As you can see, it's worth roughly 44 DPS. I don't know why it's simming my Cryo Freeze conduit, but this is just they're pretty much identical sims, and they just have a bit of variation in them. Either way, the Infernal Cascade conduit is worth 44 DPS for me, which is about 2 sockets worth. So by going from that logic, we can assume that, you know, the cost of a socket times 2 is how much the Infernal Cascade conduit upgrade is worth. Which gives us a lot of room to work with here now, because now we can go into the game again, and now we can see our potency options here. So obviously, as I mentioned, if you have all this on 213 already, and you only have on these on 200, then you can have a choice between 13 different conduits whenever you randomly upgrade one with the conduit item. So we have to do some more maths here. We're obviously going to multiply the amount the conduit upgrade costs by 13, because that's how many possibilities it can roll on. And that's how much Stygia it's going to cost if we get really unlucky. So this is really important to factor in now, because this is going to give you an idea of whether it's worth gambling or not. Because as you can see now, if I get lucky and I spend 2000 Stygia on the Conduit upgrade and I get lucky and I get the Infernal Cascade upgrade first, I am technically saving 12,000 Stygia. But at the same time, if I get unlucky and the Infernal Cascade relic is the last one I get, it's going to cost me 24,700 Stygia, which is just over 3 sockets of Stygia worth, so you can end up losing about 20-30 DPS from this. And that's a really important thing to factor in. Now obviously, there is another thing you can do here to increase your odds of getting the conduit you want and lowering the amount of potential obstacles on this potency conduit, because from PvP you can get one specific conduit from Fire, Frost and Arcane. Now I don't know which ones you have for Arcane and Frost specifically, but the important thing to consider here is that it scales on your rating. You can buy these conduits for Conquest, 200 Conquest per one, and you can get them up to 226 item level. But to get 226 ones, you have to have 2.1k rating in 3v3 or 2v2 or RBGs. If you have, I believe, 1600 or higher, you can buy 213 ones. So as you can see, that will just remove 3 options from here, and then from doing that maths, we can calculate that means we have 10 times 19. And that's how much Stygia, if we get unlucky, it will cost if we were to spend Conquest on the 3 different PvP ones we can get at the Conquest vendor. Which improves our odds, when you have to factor in that if you don't have like a item level that you can upgrade to with your PvP gear, and you're missing it in a certain slot, then you're kind of missing out on a lot of DPS more than doing the conduit gambling. So you should only do this step if you have nothing you can really get from your conquest from the PvP vendor. Okay, so now we've roughly gained how much value a socket is worth compared to the Infernal Cascade conduit. So is it worth then? Well, we have to look at our odds, right? So if we get the 14,400 number, which is how much an Infernal Cascade conduit is worth, and we divide it, whoops, one second. And we divide it by how much the Infernal Cascade, how much a conduit upgrade costs, we have 7.5 chances to get the Infernal Cascade conduit we want. So basically you just have over a 50% chance of getting or breaking even on this random conduit upgrade. I would say it's like 60% chance. But then there's another thing we have to factor in here, right? Because you could get lucky and you could, for example, get Infernal Cascade upgrade and the Discipline of the Grove upgrade while you're on your way there. So we have to factor that into the simulation as well. The only problem is I haven't really found a way to sim this properly yet, because the problem is it's going to, unless you have like a lot of these conduit energy charges left, it's really hard to do this because I cannot replace it. And as you can see, the unlock all conduits override is a bit clunky, and as a result I can't really show you very well. But what I can do, which is a bit more complex and probably you won't understand, is that I can set it to 213 item level. I can set this row because I already have a 200 item level here and a 213 one here, and I can just show you how much the Discipline of the Grove conduit upgrade is worth for me. So I'm just going to enter my SimC data in here again, just so that I've split my path. And now I can just sim this on 213, and we can see how much DPS the Discipline of the Grove is worth. This is for me though, and as I said, the main hard thing about doing this is just making sure that you have the right information when you're doing these sims. And it can be a bit hard to sim the extra conduits because it's a bit dumb when it comes to actually simming this stuff. So as you can see, the Discipline of the Grove conduit upgrade is only 7 to 6 DPS for me, which is basically nothing, but it's still something we have to factor in. It's like, you know, 1/3 of a socket in terms of value. So that's just something like extra you can just consider into your sim when you're doing this. So yeah, like that's all the important information you really need to know now. A 13 item level upgrade on my Infernal Cascade is worth 44 DPS, and it's probably something similar to you. I've showed you how to do the sim for it and how you can check your own information. We found out how much the socket was worth in value, converted it to a Stygia value, and then we did that with the Infernal Cascade conduit as well. So now the ultimate question, is it worth gambling? As I said at the start of the video, it depends on the type of content you do. If you can do plus difficulty 8 mythic dungeons, and you can do heroic raiding and clear the whole thing, because obviously you need to get all the conduits from there, even the Nephrius drops one, then it could be worth for you. And you just have to factor in the maths that, you know, you have to calculate how much your socket is worth, or you can just go off of what I've shown you here. But remember, this could be different for your character, so keep that in mind. Yeah, there is a reasonable profit to gain. I mean, you're basically gambling, right? It's a 50-50 chance or a 60-40 chance if you're going to get the conduit that's going to give you your DPS upgrade or not. But one way to upgrading, you could also get a Discipline of the Grove, which makes it slightly more valuable. Otherwise, yeah, that's all to this video. So if you're going to gamble your conduits, just keep in mind your current situation. if you have, like, you know, you get a lot of Stygia every day, right? And every week you get like 3-4k Stygia from the weekly quests. So you get a lot of Stygia. So there's no harm if you don't want to gamble, but then maybe you just, like me, like for example, I didn't have this ring for a long time. I had like 2 10 rings, and I was never going to go socket those, and I had a bit of surplus Stygia, so I could just go and, you know, gamble some conduits so I could get some DPS gain now. And I got fairly lucky on my conduits, as you can see here. I got my Infernal Cascade conduit upgrade on my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, on my 5th one. So I profited from this. But you might not profit from this. You might end up losing, you know, 12, 13k worth of Stygia from doing this, in terms of DPS. And now before I end the video, I just want to tell you the most annoying thing about gambling your conduits, and that is that you have to constantly go to Ven'ari, buy the item, come back to your grove, which is where I am right now, or your Covenant Sanctum. Then you have to click on this, you have to use the item, it will randomly upgrade one of your conduits, and then you have to go all the way back to Ven'ari and buy another one. You can't buy them all instantly, and you can't upgrade your conduits while you're at Ven'ari. You have to come back here. So it's really tedious. If you're a mage, even if you're as a mage, it's tedious, but at least we can teleport back to Oropos, right? Yeah, that's all for this video. I hope you learned more about Stygia and if it's worth gambling on your character or not. And I hope you have a wonderful day, guys. Again, if you want to help support the channel, then please consider helping with the membership. Yeah, thanks guys, and I hope you have a wonderful day.